How are you, Chris?
Great. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am really excited to have you. I think when we were having these interviews in the past, we have always interviewed musicians. So you are our first non-musician guest.
Nice.
So this is pretty exciting to us. Let's start at the beginning, and maybe can you tell us about yourself and your upbringing?
Yeah, I was born in Taipei, Taiwan, and my family and we moved to Singapore when I was 2 years old. We lived there for a couple of years, and then we moved to Claremont, California when I was 4 years old. This was back in 1985.
Okay.
And the Claremont up in LA near Pomona, not the one in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And so my upbringing, so I actually am trans. I'm trans and non-binary. I'm a trans man. So I grew up thinking that I was a girl. So in my upbringing, I was pretty tomboyish, did regular kid stuff. And I have an older brother, so we would play together.
How was that like?
It was fun because since I was tomboyish and I was into like motor car, like micro machines,
I remember that.
And like my brother had like Transformers, so I was like into those type of things, and he taught me how to play basketball and stuff like that. So yeah, my upbringing was fun in that way. We also fought a lot.
Like any family?
Like any siblings, yeah, for sure.
What was the age gap between you guys?
3 years.
Oh, not that
Oh,
bad.
that's not bad. I feel like, so my brother and I think we have like 7 years apart. So it was tough before. Now it's a little easier to get along because we're into like some of the similar things. So I think the close age gap
helped a lot. Yeah, me and my brother are like about 7, but we don't really do that much together. It's very rare.
Yeah. My brother, he and his family live in New York, so we don't see each other that often in person, but I try to like Zoom with them maybe once a month or once every other month.
Oh, nice.
So you said you left Taiwan age 4, right?
We left when I was 2. And then we moved to Singapore and left Singapore when I was 4.
I see. So do you have any memories or recollections of that time?
The only memory that I have of living in Singapore actually was when my mom took my brother and I to go get haircuts. Oh. And they had a deal of get 2 perms and get 1 free. So there's a picture of the 3 of us on some steps, and it's me first, then my brother, then my mom, and we all have curly hair, and that's the only memory just because there's a picture
and there was a sale.
And there's sale.
You can't say no to a sale.
Exactly.
That's so fun because I always ask, I think I've asked you, but some people, I have like no recollection of my like infancy, like really, like besides pictures, that's the things that maybe. But I wish I could remember more. Do you have the same thing where you can actually remember?
Yeah, I remember most of my childhood.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
How do you guys do it?
I have a weird memory.
I can. I think probably the earliest memory I have is probably like me being like 6, and it's like stealing like a magazine that was like in a counter, kind of thing. And I was pretending to read it or something, Like.
No, I think for me, my earliest memory is when I got kicked out of my parents' room when I was like 2.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What were you doing at age 2, first of all?
Nothing. It was just more I caught them in the act, and my dad was like, get him out.
I'm sorry.
And the next day, I got kicked out.
Wow.
Yeah, then having to go to a room with my brother, I remember crying like the first couple of nights. I was just like, why am I in here?
Why did they not love me?
It was weird. But yeah, I have a lot of memories from when I was a kid.
Let's switch this a bit from
Eric's
kicked
weird
out of your
memory.
parents' house. I have to say this. Your cooking is so good.
Thank you.
We were fortunate enough to have Chris cook for us a couple of days before this recording, and to be honest, it was good. Like, I'm not making it up.
Yeah, you kind of messed up shrimp for me a little bit because I cooked it the other day, and I was just like, damn, this isn't as good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm also not glad to hear that. But if you need any assistance, I do cooking lessons.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
So how do those usually work out?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely do it at your house, whatever's more comfortable for you. And what I really try to bring to the cooking lessons are the techniques and strategies, because I want to empower people to be able to cook for themselves.
Yeah.
And, sharing trade secrets. I have over 8 years of restaurant cooking experience, so kind of learning the type of like sort of regimented way of cooking professionally. I take that and I adapt it to home cooking because, of course, when you're at home, you're more relaxed. You know, if you mess something up, it's okay.
Yeah.
But kind of bringing that training into home cooking and teaching, you know, efficiency methods, you know, trying to lower food waste, and really making the food shine, and also customizing the cooking lesson to whatever you specifically want to learn, or if you have any like dietary considerations that you want to kind of focus on, trying to eat healthier or lower sodium or what have you. So, you know, it really comes down to empowering the person to be able to cook for themselves. Because, of course, I want to have the business of being a cooking instructor, but in the end, I want for you to be able to carry that on for yourself.
Yeah, I that resonates so much with me because, so fun fact, my wife wasn't too much of a cook before we met each other. She actually was kind of like not inclined to like try some new foods, you know. So I introduced her to like, let's say sushi, you know, or more some of the Mexican food, but from my region, you know. So like little things like that. So that's how I started. But one of the things when we were cooking that I was showing her how to do, which I think it's crucial for anybody out there, and maybe I'm curious to know your tip too, is making sure that you don't throw a lot of the stuff that people throw away is stuff that you can use. Like, especially if you can put together like a soup, is like the easiest thing you can do with scraps or like leftovers. So that's like one of the things that like I've taught her, right? Like if we're gonna boil chicken, we're using that stock.
Yeah, definitely what you're talking about of not throwing away scraps. Like if you get carrots that have the greens on it, you can cook that up. Beet tops, any kind of even when you're talking about cutting off the ends of an onion, and you usually throw that out, you can save all those scraps and make chicken stock or whatever kind of stock you want to make. Even when you're peeling shrimp, save the shrimp shells and use that to make shrimp stock, or even fish bones. Any kind of bones are great for stock, and especially when you have the joints or the bone marrow. Those are really good and high collagen. Yeah, good flavor, but high collagen too, which is good for your body as well.
I'm gonna get hungry.
I'm just a lazy cook. That's my problem.
Well, first of all, you're by yourself right now.
Yeah,
I think that's another challenge. And then the other thing is that it does take a little bit of your time, but I don't think it's wasted time. You know, it does go a long way. I do agree with you, Eric. Last time we were talking about this, it is hard to cook for one person.
Yeah,
it is. Because you get bored. Like, I've been there, and then you get bored of what you're cooking. So do you have any tips for people that maybe are like by themselves?
Yeah, I'm used to cooking in big batches, right, from restaurant cooking. But what I find with, if I'm going to just cook for myself, I will try to pare it down. But, you know, if you're going to eat the same thing for 4 days in a row, you get tired of it. So what I'll do is I'll just freeze half of it and save it for another time. And that way you don't get sick of it. And so that's an easy tip to get around that.
Yeah.
It's also hard to cook for two sometimes, especially if both persons are like, you know, both people are working. But I think something that I have heard, I haven't done it, but I've heard some people like freezing tortillas on their freezer just to actually, no. I'm scared that they're going to come, like, you know, there are some items that sometimes you freeze and then you like thaw out and they're not quite the same.
It's going to crumble, right?
Yeah, so I don't know how tortillas are going to be.
They're fine.
Yeah,
I do it all the time. Remember, I live alone, so I'm like, I go buy, I'm like, the smallest thing I'm going to find is a 12-pack. And even then I'm like, 12's not enough. So I'm like, all right, I'll buy 3 dozen. It's like, I'm only going to use like half of them and I freeze the other half.
Yeah, we keep corn tortillas in the fridge for like months.
Really?
Yeah.
Where are you buying your tortillas? I need
to know. They're just
now.
regular. They're not even like fancy ones. They're just...
my issue is I have expiration dates in my head too much that I'm just like, I can't do it. I don't know why I can't do it.
Yeah. A lot of times the expiration date is like it's optimal.
And
like
it's usually
optimal
crap.
flavor and texture.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a way for them to make us buy more things because they want us to throw it away faster.
Yeah. The only things where I feel like I'm very anal about it is like produce, because I'm like, oh, why do I get so like, oh, there's a little bit of like, why am I caring? But somehow I care.
Yeah, like a little blemish.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh, God damn it. Well, a lot of times what I'll end up doing, I'll just cut that part off. And I'm like, oh, I'm good to go.
Well, and even some of that, even though it looks kind of like weird, it doesn't mean that it'll bring bad flavor. It won't taste good.
It won't do anything.
It's not going to make you sick just from that little tiny.
Exactly.
Yeah, for me, I think like cauliflower, I'm always like, oh, I got to eat this like in a week. But a lot of times I'm like, this will last me 2 weeks easily. Why am I getting worried about it?
Or one of the things that I do, like broccoli is one of those, like as soon as it starts turning like that yellowish color that a lot of people tend to like also shy away from. But if you end up just boiling it.
The one that always gets me mad though is bananas. Because it's always you buy all the bananas and they're not going to go right at the exact same time. And you're on a time clock right there when they eat them. What I end up doing is like when I can't finish them, freeze them.
Exactly.
Perfect for smoothies.
And the tip is to peel it and freeze it, without the peel. But I found that actually if you freeze it with the peel, you just pull it out of the freezer, let it thaw for like a minute or two, and you just peel it. It's
I've never tried it that way.
Yeah.
Save a bag too.
Yeah.
Because usually what I do is I put them in protein shakes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get the protein shake done right away that I don't have the patience to wait for it to thaw out.
Right.
Because I'm like, no, I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
And it's like an ice cube for me. I was like, all right, perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it.
So where did all this passion for cooking come from?
So when I was a kid, my mom would have me help her out in the kitchen. I would peel potatoes or, pick off the ends of green beans or pretty much just be her helper around the kitchen. And then when I got a little bit older, she would have me cut stuff. And then I got really excited when I got to the age where she had me actually like stir the stuff in the pan. I was like super excited. I was like, oh my God, like
don't
fire.
Mess this up, man.
Yeah, fire and heat and and then so my birthday is Christmas Eve. So I oftentimes wouldn't be spending my birthday with my friends at school. So what I would do is I would make cupcakes and bring it the last day before winter break. And so I enjoyed the, bringing something homemade to my friends. And because it was my birthday, it's obviously like a fun occasion. And so I got into doing that. And then my sophomore year of college, when I was out of the dorms, I was living on my own. That was actually the first time I started to actually cook for myself versus just helping out my mom. And so I still remember the exact recipe that I made on my own for the first time. I had bought a bag of romaine hearts, and on the back of it, there was a recipe for chicken Caesar salad. And I just got all the ingredients together, put it together. I was like, this is super easy and it's super good. And so from there, I started to cook a little bit more and more. And then in 2005, I was in between legal assistant jobs, and I was kind of tired of the legal field.
Just stop you right. That's a big stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. And basically what I thought, so this was back when pretty much Craigslist was the only way to find jobs online. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just want to do something fun. Mm-hmm. So I found a restaurant down the street from where I was living. At that time I was in Oakland, and there was a restaurant called Garibaldi's, and they did Mediterranean food. And so I was just on a whim. I was like, let me just apply. I went so in cooking, it's kind of like a working interview. It's called a stage. And so I went there and, no experience at all in restaurants. And basically the chef, he liked to hire people that didn't have experience because he wanted to be able to mold the person and teach the person the way that he does things, right? And so I worked there for a year and a half. I loved it. I started off in the garde manger station, so I was doing cold and hot apps, the fried items, and I would help out with the dessert station just to plate things. And then I moved up to the wood-fired oven station, which was super fun. Really, really hot, but really fun and really intense. Yeah. And so I really liked doing that. And that the kitchen there was half open and half closed. So the garde manger, dessert, and wood-fired oven stations were open. So we would talk to the diners, to the guests. And then after I worked at the wood-fired oven station, I then moved to the back kitchen where it was the meat, fish, and the basically the chef de cuisine would be the expediter. And so I worked on the station where it was the fish and sauce station. And so I was making all the sauces for the back kitchen and making the fish. And so I loved it there, and I told my parents that I wanted to go to culinary school. I actually applied. I applied and put in a deposit for the California Institute of the Culinary Institute. Yeah. CIA, Culinary Institute of Arts, and in San Francisco. And at that time, I still was very much under the influence of what my parents wanted me to do. And because I had done legal assistant work, they were like, why don't you go to law school?
I was about to say, because it is.
Yeah. It is a big stretch.
It is. Yeah. I've always been of the mindset of, you do what you love. And there's a saying, like, you do what you love and you won't work for a day,
Exactly.
So I can see that, but I can also see it from the parent side too, because, just with talking with nephews and family, sometimes you go like, man, like, you can do something like, they don't see it as big in the same as you. So like they go like, well, you could be doing this though, right? And then now you're saying cooking, and you go like, well, but this is also good.
Yeah. And so what my mom said was, if you go into cooking, you're going to be working when everyone else is playing, which is true, especially because I like to do dinner versus if I work brunch, then I'll actually have the rest of the day off and be able to hang out with friends. But because I like to work dinner, I was working Tuesday or Wednesday through Sunday evenings, which we would start around 3 p.m. and I wouldn't get home till 1 a.m. Wow. So I didn't have a life. I didn't have a social life because, Monday, Tuesdays, people are working anyways. And so what she said of that was very true. It's also very labor intensive, right? Yeah. You're sweating, you're lifting heavy things. It's not easy. But the thrill of the thrill and like the adrenaline that you get working on the line, and also the feeling of accomplishment at the end of the evening where you're like, wow, we did 200 covers or however many guests came in, and you just like bust that shit out, and that feeling of like, yeah, I did it, and like I'm still alive. That's just I do miss that part of it. But
the adrenaline
and that, like, even if you're like having a tough time and you're in the weeds and you like somehow like get yourself out of it, it's like it just feels really great. Like I did it, Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a lot of fun. But right now, not working in not working in restaurants and just having my catering business and my meal plans and stuff like that, it's so great because I can make my own schedule. I can take on whatever jobs I want to or not want to. So the freedom to do that is priceless.
And you're your own boss, right? So exactly. You are the owner of Chris Mok Creations, right?
Yeah.
I know it's a big change from cooking, on the line versus cooking for catering. So was there any struggles there for you?
Yeah, I would say pretty much when I'm considering taking on a job, I have to consider like what I have capacity for. If I can meet, the number of guests that they want, and I don't have certain equipment, I would have to rent, and then if I rent equipment, then it just raises the cost.
The cost.
Yeah. So that's one of the challenges.
So what would be your recommendation to maybe somebody that's just listening to your story and be like, well, I may want to try that?
As far as catering goes, I do wish that I had more experience working for a catering company.
What's your train of thought when it comes to cooking? Because there's people that go the academic route, right? And they go to like culinary school, but here you are, right? Somebody that went through experience. So I mean, do you see any difference? Because I feel like it's one of those things where, like, unless you do it 1,000 times for a good amount, or more, like, you need practice.
Yeah, I think having the culinary school background is valuable, but a few years ago, I interviewed at a place in San Diego. It's called Blue Bohème, and I asked the owner / executive chef, looking at my resume, do you think that I should go and get a culinary degree at this point, and he said no. You have so much experience that it would be a waste of money and time for you to get a degree now. Yep. And it really is, like you said, it's the practice. You do something 1,000 times, you know, you're going to get it down. And when you get in a kitchen, you don't necessarily need everything that you learn in culinary school. It's good to have that foundation, and sort of I kind of feel like it's like culinary school is the theory and practice, and then just going the experience route, of course you get the practice and the application. So having the theory is good for background, but you don't necessarily need it.
Like you'll pick it up.
You'll pick it up
on the job.
And again, it also depends on the chef. It's how they want you to do the things, right? It really is dependent on how that restaurant runs, what their style is, how the head chef wants for you to do things a certain way.
Like when you first went to that first job, he preferred people without experience because he can mold them, as you even said. Sometimes when you get these people from culinary school, they have their methods, and it's hard to break them out of those methods. So it's easier. Hey, if I start from scratch, he's not going to know anything else other than what I teach him. So I can get him to do exactly what I want. Culinary school people, you don't always know because they might be set in their ways and they are not getting out of those ways.
And academics like sometimes doesn't really translate to application, like you're saying. And I say this because like I saw it, you know, at the kitchen, like same thing. If you're working for catering, it's going to work different if you work in the line, right? So if you're doing your sauces a day earlier, you know, or are you doing them the morning of, you know, how early are you doing them? Because if you're in the line, you're not going to have time to be doing, you know, some of the sauces that you may need right there on the spot. You may have to have like maybe some back stock, you know?
Right.
So there are little things that, and you know, in school you just think like, well, you know, I'm just gonna do my stock, and then you have this, and right. So it's more structured that way. Whereas in the kitchen, I feel like things could get a little bit more chaotic, and you may not have that time and structure that you want.
Yeah, and if you think about it, in history, there were no culinary schools way back when, and how did people make food?
And now we have the Food Network.
Yeah, exactly. You got free education right there.
Yeah. So what's your take on that? I make fun of Food Network, but I actually love it. Like I had
to stop watching it because it was just making me want to make crazy shit.
Just makes you, but that's the good thing though. It's just expensive sometimes.
Tell that to my wallet.
Yeah. No, I love it. I really enjoy. So back in the day when Top Chef first came out, I love that.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh, I watched so many of those seasons.
And nowadays I don't watch as much, but sometimes I'll watch like Great British Baking Show just because it's just fun and entertaining, and the people are like super sweet.
I tried watching that one. I couldn't get to it.
You couldn't get into it.
It's so different from the Americans. It is weird. Definitely,
it's so wholesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like there's a message to everything that they're doing. Like I think people should definitely watch it just to get a glimpse into how.
Yeah, and then American food shows are very like there's a lot of like cutthroat ones.
I mean, there's literally a cutthroat kitchen.
There's one, yeah. And so those are fun in certain ways, but. I kind of like the ones that are like nice and sweet.
You just reminded me like when I watched Top Chef Canada the first time, I'm like, wow, this ones are a lot nicer than in Top Chef America.
I actually didn't even know Canada had one.
Yeah, I think it's on season 10 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The more you know.
But it's on Canada's TV network, so it's like it's hard for us to find it. And they're like, we don't want them to see it. We don't want them to see the nice things.
Yeah.
I remember watching that too, and I saw them using ingredients. I was like, what the hell is this? I've never heard of it.
They did what?
They were using ingredients I'd never heard of.
Oh, okay.
And it's that thing like, oh yeah, sometimes Americans were used to just certain ingredients, but then other places they use completely different things a lot of times.
That's actually what I like, because I get to see like every now and then you go like, wait, what is that?
Right.
And then you go like, oh, that's like our Mexican sour cream kind of thing, you know, like or the one that now it comes more to my attention, like when I see the cooking shows is. Like with all the, you know, now vegan, right? It's kind of like seen in kitchens. So now you learn things that you can go do vegan that you didn't know how to do vegan before. So that is like crazy cool. Like we have tried here at the house to like, we tried to do like meatless Monday, let's say. And we had so much fun trying to figure out how to make something vegan was fun in itself.
Yeah, it's making vegan food that you think tastes like non-vegan food is is really satisfying too.
Sorcery, I call it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's magic.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, and that, like, if you eat something that's vegan and you don't know that it's vegan, and I'm just like, oh wow, this whatever
No way this is
beef
vegan.
stock was in this, like, it makes it taste so good, and then they tell me it's vegan. I'm like, oh wow.
You told me before too, you like ramen.
Yes.
So weirdly enough, and sorry Underbelly, but at Underbelly, right, I had their pork ramen, and then another day I had their I think it was a Monday, so we were doing the vegan, and I had their vegan ramen. Surprisingly enough, the vegan ramen that I had was significantly better than their signature pork ramen.
Wow, that's impressive.
And that's impressive because
Yeah.
ramen, when you think of ramen, you think of like a hearty, strong broth.
Yes.
I'm salivating.
It really makes you be more creative.
Yep.
And that's always fun.
Well, and that's probably the other thing that we want to touch when talking about you, right? Because you do have your creative side. So what is Chris Mok Creations? Like, what's your goal with this company or business?
Ultimately, when it comes to my company, I want to be able to create a group or a place, a venue where we can share resources, we can skill share. I want to be able to create somewhere where workshops can be held, on anything. It could be how to make a budget, how to, change your oil in your car or whatever, anything. And I want to also have a space where people can share, perform. They can do drag performances, they can sing, they can do, like an open mic. And in the space, I also want to be able to have, and the space will be, I would like it to be a co-op, worker co-op type of structure, and having a backyard space where we can have like a farm to be able to do farm to table for the restaurant would be ideal, and have like a little compost corner, teach people how to compost, and have more sustainable living situations. That's my ultimate goal. So be on the lookout for that.
No,
yeah.
awesome, yeah. It's really ambitious, but I think it's the right move. I think everybody's seeing it now too. Like, that's why you see a lot of get local produce, and just like well, maybe a little spoiler, but I do have something to share too for you later after this, a little thank you gift. But I think we were saying like about I have like an orange tree here, right? So we were saying like, save some of the orange peels. But my mom also has a guava tree, so we made sure to make a little something for you that I hope you like.
Awesome!
It.
I love guava, so if it has anything to do with guava, I'm gonna love it.
Sweet, literally.
And yeah, the orange peels I use for my Lucky 8 seasoning blend. So the Lucky 8 seasoning blend is, if you take Asian 5-spice and pumpkin spice and they had a baby, that's what Lucky 8 would be. And it's called Lucky 8 because in Chinese, when you say the number 8, it also sounds like the word for fortune or like good luck. And there's 8 ingredients in it. And so one of the ingredients is homemade dried orange peel.
Oh, nice.
And it's very versatile. You can use it for sweet and savory applications because, like, you can use it for any recipe that calls for Asian 5-spice. You can also use it for any recipe that calls for cinnamon or cloves or nutmeg. Has all those things in it, and Szechuan peppercorn. And so it's very. You can just use it for chicken. You can use it for vegetables, mushrooms, and if you pair that with one of my other seasoning blends, I have 2 other seasoning blends, Just Cruising. That one is smoky and a little bit spicy, but it's sort of like an all-purpose. It's got garlic and onion and chipotle, smoked paprika, and a few other ingredients. And then the third one is Fierce Flaming Flavor. So that one's got a lot of heat to it. It has all the same ingredients as Just Cruising, as well as mango habanero. And habanero obviously is one of the spicier peppers, and dried mango is actually, interestingly enough, it is a meat tenderizer. And so if you pair the Lucky 8 with either of the Just Cruising or Fierce Flaming flavor, it's just like flavor bomb.
Oh. The one that you use for the scallops and the shrimp.
Yeah, the Just Cruising.
The Just Cruising.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be using your spice. I think we have some wings, and then I have some meat that I want to smoke. So I wanna try it out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And support local.
Yeah, support local.
Our thing though is that we love to cook wings.
It's also easy and fun. And if you use Just Cruising
an
or
air
Fierce
fryer is the greatest thing, because
Yeah.
as soon as I found out about air fryer wings, I'm just like, why did I not know about this? This is all you need.
Yeah. This guy right here got everybody to in our group of friends to basically buy an air fryer.
Because it's great.
You're the
It is
reason.
great.
Yeah, it's amazing. They're not a sponsor by any means, but fries, I'm still think oil is a little bit better. But wings is a perfect example of something that comes out so good from an air fryer. Just because, I mean, the skin in itself has a lot of fat, right? So that's what's going to crisp up in the air fryer. And you don't need more oil than whatever the chicken has.
No,
Exactly.
No.
So, see, I told you we were going to get hungry, but
That's why I ate before I came here.
oh man,
Actually, I don't know if you answered this. Your signature dish.
My signature dish. Okay, so I love meat, and
After all the vegan talk.
I know, right?
dude,
I worked at a butcher shop in San Diego before. It was called Heart and Trotter. They
Okay,
actually, unfortunately,
I'm going to stop
sold.
you once again. You have to come here again, and you have to teach me how to butcher.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Like, no, like I'm serious. Like, oh man, this is gonna come out now. So, my sister has this fish, right, that she got, and I'm so scared because she's like, "Oh, you want to cook it?" I was like, "Yeah, I would love to cook it, but it's whole, and I don't want to destroy it. I want to use I want to use it, so I may have to bring you here and show me how to."
For sure.
Yeah,
We can do another YouTube video.
yeah, let's do it. Okay,
So,
but continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So I make a bacon wrapped pork tenderloin, and I stuff it with onion, garlic, and apple. And then every time I've made it, I try to do a different sauce. So I've done like a lime cilantro sauce, a chimichurri sauce, a grilled pineapple chutney sauce. And yeah, I love it. It's got a lot of flavor to it. I add my Just Cruising on the outside, and then some fresh herbs, either thyme or oregano or parsley. And then, yeah, gets wrapped up in that bacon, grill it.
Damn you.
I know. I was like, I wasn't hungry before he said that. I'm like, God.
Actually, talking about the vegan, so I have a new vegan signature dish, and thanks to my partner, they found a recipe for lentil pie. So if you think of like shepherd's pie, where you've got like the layer of ground lamb and peas and carrots, and then the potato on top. So lentil pie, you just substitute lentil for the lamb, and then to make it healthier, you can do cauliflower and potato instead of just potato. So that makes it more.
It's funny you mentioned
hearty.
cauliflower, because recently I got rid of I stopped eating rice and I just switched it with like rice cauliflower, and I was just like,
that's good.
I'm like, that was such a easy change that it's like I'm not missing rice that much.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to use, like cauliflower, you do the fried rice, like fried cauliflower rice.
Yeah.
It's
So good.
so good.
Yeah.
It's easy to mix with anything. You can just throw any spice on it, and like it's just gonna take the flavor of whatever that spice is.
Yeah. So how are you with desserts though? Like, is that your strong suit? Like, what do you prefer?
I definitely like savory more. Yeah, desserts. One of my favorite things to make is pumpkin pie. I love pumpkin flavored anything, and you just grab a can of pumpkin puree, add a ton of Lucky 8 to it, and whatever other ingredients, and then I have to admit I don't like to make my own pastry dough, so I will buy the pre-made
No shame.
pie crust.
I do the
and
same.
It makes life so much easier.
Yeah, and it's already kind of in that container too that you can. Yeah.
Exactly.
I
And you don't have to worry about like getting the dish back if you're going to give it to somebody.
So fast, even Eric has time to do it.
I want to go that far.
The kitchen may burn, but
Well, it's one of those things. Like I feel like pastry chefs are very different, like the other ones, because like they're just about their recipe. They're not going to go outside
it's
the
the
recipe.
science.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I can't do it.
and that's why that was my strong suit.
Well, the science has to be exact, except if you're going to use Lucky 8 instead of the cinnamon, nutmeg, and whatever is in the recipe. I always add like twice as much of Lucky 8 to the recipe just because I really like to boost up that pumpkin flavor.
We're gonna have to do that one too. I know I have some pumpkin cans here, so
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
So where does Chris fall on this? Like, what is your style?
It's varied. It's very varied. So, like you said, from my Chinese background, cooking with my mom, I have those roots. And then working in restaurants, I've worked in American restaurants, Italian, French. I really enjoy Mexican food. I also love Thai food and Mediterranean food. So it's kind of across the board, and it really comes down to whatever the customer wants. And what I really appreciate is when a customer tells me that I can experiment with things and they can be my guinea pig. So then I have fun. So it really varies.
It unleashes your creative side.
Yeah.
Love it. So we did mention that you're part of the LGBTQ plus community. So, since you're from San Diego, I wanted to maybe dive a little bit more into that, right? So how has that influenced the way you maybe shape your business or your cooking? Is there any influence there?
Yeah, for sure. I really enjoy creating events for LGBTQ plus people. So pre-pandemic, a friend of mine, they have a business called Loud and Queer Zine. So they create zines collecting different artwork from the LGBTQ plus community. So they and we would create events at the Brown Building in City Heights, and it would be anything from art shows to makers markets to we would have photo shoots in Balboa Park or around the city, and then we would have the art show featuring the photos and the models at the Brown Building. And so the influence of that is pretty much creating space and opportunity for us to shine and for us to do the things that we enjoy and to share our crafts or our art or our passions with each other and network. And really what it comes down to is creating spaces where our community can connect. Because I'm a Capricorn, and I love doing like task-oriented things that I can see some kind of benefit come out of it.
So you're wearing something from a friend too?
Yes. So I have some jewelry from a friend of mine, Grace. They started a company called Lupin. It's LOUPN. And it's jewelry. It's really high quality. I'm wearing a few of their pieces. These three right here, I don't know if you can see, and then this necklace as well. And they are a friend of mine I've known Grace from 5th grade. So she and I have been friends.
You guys go back.
Yeah, way back.
Well, it seems to me that you're surrounded by a lot of people that support you.
Yes.
So I think that speaks volumes for you and your friends. So is that true for the San Diego LGBTQ community? Do you think it's pretty welcoming to anybody?
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely felt a lot of support and love from the community, and it feeds back into myself to be able to give back to them. And yeah, I love the LGBTQ plus community here.
I actually have a segue from that. When did you know you were trans?
I think growing up, because I didn't know anyone that was out as trans, I just wasn't aware of the fact. It wasn't until when I first started to really explore my sexuality was in college. And I kind of always thought I wish that I had that extra appendage. Because I felt like something was lacking, but I kind of just repressed it because I had internalized transphobia and didn't even realize it. I was like, oh, that's weird. I'm abnormal, and so I repressed it. And even the fact that my parents and my brother, when I came out to them as queer, they interrogated me for hours asking me like, why are you this way? Like, what made you this way? And there was this one winter when I was visiting my parents in LA, and my brother was also. And when I got there, my dad opened the door and he was like, oh, I thought you were going to come home as my son and no longer my daughter. And I was like, what are you even talking about? So apparently my brother had shared with some Facebook photos of when I did drag.
Oh, so your brother knew.
My brother knew, yeah. He found my drag king photos on Facebook and shared it with them. And so hearing my dad react in that way even more repressed my feelings that I was trans. And I think it wasn't until when I moved to San Diego in 2015, about a year later, I started to go to the LGBT Center has these support groups. And so I went to the trans one, and then I started to meet people who were sharing with me some of the same like feelings that I had, and just kind of realizing that there were certain things about my body that were incongruent. So, for instance, the way that my chest was. So I've had top surgery. So basically removing my breasts. And so I talked to folks who had similar feelings about that, as well as when I was talking to folks, they would share with me gender dysphoria. So that's when your internal gender identity doesn't match with how your body is. And I never really quite understood what that meant yet, even though I had like looked it up in the dictionary or online, and friends would explain to me what it meant, but I didn't really truly understand what it meant until there was this one time when I got my period. And I had a period tracker on my app on my phone before, and I got the period 2 days before I was supposed to get it. And so when I saw that I got it, I was like, that's not supposed to happen. But it was not just that it was 2 days early. It was a feeling of like, that shouldn't exist at all. Like that shouldn't even occur, period.
Yeah.
But so I told my friend about it, and she was like, that's gender dysphoria. I was like, that light bulb, went off, and I was like, that's what that means. And so once I had that feeling, and this happened, I think in maybe 2017. And so then I sought out a therapist through my healthcare to discuss these feelings. And then I started hormone replacement therapy. I like to call it hormone affirmation therapy, HAT, instead of HRT. And then so I started hormones in 2019, I think it was. I actually delayed my starting hormones because my mom had back surgery in 2018, and her recovery was not good. And I kind of wanted to wait for her to get to a point where she was a little bit better. And she did, but she had a lot of different health issues just throughout her life. And finally, I got to the point where I was like, I can't wait any longer to be myself. Like I needed to do it, and I ended up starting it just a little bit before I went back up to LA for my cousin had a baby shower. And I knew that even though my parents were going to go to it, my aunt, they talk with my parent, they, talk with them a lot. And so I knew that word would get back to my parents. So after the baby shower, I came out to my parents, and it was very different from when I came out to them as queer for some reason. Why
do you think that was?
I'm not really sure. I think they saw how difficult it was for me to come out to them as trans, because like even before I said it, I already started crying because I was so anxious and scared of how they would react because of the way they reacted from me being queer. And I remember like my mom was sitting behind me, and when I said it, she just like put her hand on my shoulder and was like, "We support you, like, you know, tell us what you need." And I just was like, I started crying more, you know?
Yeah.
But so it's yeah, so I think in my heart I knew a lot further back than how I consciously, like I subconsciously knew before I consciously knew.
I think it's important to tell your story because it could resonate with somebody listening out there.
Yeah.
So I think maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the key there is that know that it's not easy, because it seems like even while you were going through this process, right, of where am I, why am I feeling this, like there are questions that you had to get answered. So maybe if you're out there and listening to this, you know, just know that it's hard, and it's your story to tell too, right?
It is really hard. It's really exhausting. It's also very anxiety inducing when you think about how much transphobia and homophobia is out there and how many hate crimes are committed, and the fact that a lot of people don't report, you know, the hate crimes that are committed against them. And I would suggest for anyone listening out there, be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, give yourself patience. If you are someone who's comfortable with seeking out support groups, definitely check out PFLAG, or, you know, if you're fortunate enough to have an LGBTQ center in your town. But even if you don't, go online. You can find so many different resources online. And I really like PFLAG. It's parents and friends of lesbians and gays. And PFLAG is really wonderful. They are, I think, 50 years old now.
Oh, wow.
They really helped me out with when I was struggling with how to come out to my parents, because I didn't even know the word for transgender in Chinese until I talked to
Is there a
someone.
word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hua Xingbie. I think I'm pronouncing it right. But yeah, I was able to find in LA, there's a chapter, the San Gabriel Valley chapter, PFLAG has an Asian specific group that meets. And one of the silver linings of the pandemic is everything's gone online. So I was able to attend those through, you know, Zoom. And they really helped me to have the language to be able to talk to my parents about it, and to kind of hear, you know, what they've gone through with their trans or queer kids.
That's awesome right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really touching for me because two of my, well, back in elementary school, middle school, I had two of my best friends. Definitely, you know, they're now out. As close as I was to them, I can see why it is so hard. You know, because not everybody's gonna take it the same way, and there's always, you know, even if you're straight, there's always gonna be somebody that, you know, is gonna judge you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's the same token. You know, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So I think just being mindful and acknowledging that there are people out there that have these same challenges, you know, that they face these same challenges, it's super important.
And I do have to say too that, you know, so I'm out, and for people who are not out, you know, definitely don't out a person.
Yeah.
And I'm an open book. I will answer whatever questions, but for those who aren't comfortable with sharing intimate details, you know, don't ask them.
It's your story to tell.
Yeah.
If you want to tell your story, you tell it. If you don't, you know, it at the end of the day, it's whatever makes you happy. If you're happy just keeping it to yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think I remember watching an episode of John Oliver once, and I think he was putting clips of people asking trans people, like, oh, so what do you have down there? And it's like, none of your goddamn business.
Yeah. Like, you wouldn't ask anyone else
exactly.
that.
I was just like,
how is it any
why would
different?
anyone ever ask that? It's like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, no. Well, and you always have to think of like, where is that even coming from, right? Like, what are you getting out of this?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just rude and inappropriate.
Yeah.
No, actually, you remind me, like, in a lighthearted thing, I remember when one of my friends came out to us, like, this was in college. He was drunk and he came out. And I think he was very scared the next day, like, oh man, this just happened. But everyone was super supportive, and I think that really helped them out, because you can tell when people have a support system, because they're still scared to come out.
Yeah.
But like once you have that support system and you need to get that positive feedback, it feels like that helps a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why I love the sketches, or when you see like on SNL or some sort of sketches where they flip the script to see the straight being the minority and the LGBTQ community, the plus community being like the majority, and then, well, how would you feel about
right?
Yeah. And I want to clarify something, because you sent me something on an email and you mentioned you like The Matrix. So we're gonna switch a little bit.
Oh, we're going to The Matrix.
Yes.
Oh, you want me to get angry?
Now, is The Matrix still your favorite movie after seeing Matrix Resurrection, the latest movie that came out?
I actually pretty much just like the first one.
Okay,
we're friends. We're
on the same page.
Friends.
We're on the same page. We're on the same page.
That was horrible, man.
I don't think I've even watched the Resurrection one. After 2 and 3, because Resurrection is number 4, right? Yep. Yeah. After 2 and 3, I was like, this is just trash.
Yeah, I remember being so excited to go watch 2. Me and my brother went to go watch. We're like, oh yeah, everyone getting down. We're like, that wasn't good, was it?
Yeah,
I don't watch it. I'll do you a favor.
Not worth my time.
No,
they retcon a lot of stuff, and it makes no sense. It's one of the few movies, actually, because I'm doing movie reviews now. I want to go back and watch that one again, just so I can tell people don't watch it. Yeah. It makes no sense.
I felt like I was watching like The Notebook, and that's not The Matrix.
That's so weird.
You know?
That's the thing. I'd rather watch The Notebook than The Matrix.
Well, yeah,
Matrix
but
Resurrection, because at least that story makes sense.
Yes. But once again, it's like you have this expectation of Neo and things, and and I was like, this is just not. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know who directed that, but maybe once you do your movie review.
It's the same people.
Oh, that's even more.
But now it's the Wachowski sisters, right? Because they were both trans. I don't know. The directors of The Matrix, I'm pretty sure they're both trans.
Oh, really?
Oh,
yeah.
Well, you just learned something new. We definitely need to do that movie review now. I want to do it with you.
You don't want to. That's going to be like my first bad score. We're just going to tell everyone, don't watch this. It's a waste of time. Why did they have to change this? Oh, they went very meta with it. Where The Matrix is
It's already meta, though.
They made it even more meta.
Oh, my God.
Where Neo's working on a video game that is The Matrix. While he's in The Matrix.
That sounds really cheesy.
It's bad. And then they did recasting that just didn't make any sense.
Oh, no.
Well, because Lawrence Fishburne was not young enough to do it anymore.
He already knew it was going to be bad.
Oh, they both knew it. And they even make the joke in the movie saying, if we didn't remake this, someone else was gonna. So it's kind of like they're even taking credit, we kind of had to do this. Yeah. And they probably killed the franchise with it. It's that bad.
God.
I think what I like about The Matrix is that whole thing of the first movie. I agree.
Yeah, the first movie has such a great idea.
It's that whole concept of like technology, and you're embedded into this thing that you don't. It kind of takes reality away, or is reality actually this that you're living? Because now you have AI, you have automation, you have all these things that you go man, this is now, I feel more real than what it was 5 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, it really makes you question things.
It does.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is this reality?
I don't know. I'm programmed not to tell you.
Am I real?
Pinch yourself. Yeah. No. Speaking of that, so we had an episode on automating and in the food industry kind of happening.
Beat me to it. I was about to mention that.
And so I want to ask you, just because I want to hear your thoughts on this. Do you see that as a good thing or a bad thing, or where do you stand on this, as far as automating the food industry?
Yeah, I mean, both. There's good and bad, and I think it's great for cutting costs down, probably cutting food waste. There might be less mistakes, but then you're taking away jobs from people, and you're losing that human contact, which I think is really important in cooking and sharing food. And yeah, so it's good and bad.
Yeah, definitely. I think I see that, because food is something that connects people.
Definitely.
If you go back and even in the history books, right? There has always been food, and then people gather around it, and it's something of community, right? I think where we were saying in that episode is you're always gonna have to have that chef, or
I think the one thing that we kind of were iffy on is we're pretty sure it's going to fast food for sure.
Yeah.
I think in the next 5 years, pretty easily.
Yeah.
it's the big restaurant type things where I'm like, I don't know if I actually see it going in there too much, because I'm like, there's going to be that human element that I think people are still going to want, that I'm like, I'm not sure if you're going to get that with automation.
Right. Yeah. Especially with like open kitchens where you can talk to the person while they're making their food for you. That's always a lot of fun.
I would be scared. I would be scared
watching them make the food.
I think the one thing we also said is like, because we're pretty sure it's going to be fast food, but it's only going to be once it's cost efficient. Right. I still don't think it's cost efficient.
Not yet.
But I think the way California likes to raise minimum wage, we might get there sooner rather than later. But I'm also like, I don't think it's going to go to the rest of the country that quick.
Right.
Because the rest of the country, like, not as rich as California, so it's going to be a while.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, definitely. I think I still stand where I feel like I'm all for automation, actually. But there are just some things that you can't do. Like,
just for certain industries, I'm into it.
Exactly. And we were saying, like, for fine dining, that may be a perfect, or not even fine dining, like, fast food, definitely. But even, like, casual, like, dining, once you go the automation route, you pretty much have the same flavors, and, you're probably, you're not experiencing food. And, like, that's what a chef does. It basically brings all these flavors and twist them in a way that maybe you haven't tasted them in a while, right? So that's the beauty of it. Like, something I have never tasted, now everything's going to taste like the same burger, That's where... I think another thing that we were talking about was, I don't know if you know this, but there's a store now that, because automation comes from, like, I feel like it's lowering the cost, right, of food to bring it to people's tables. But, like, the other thing that people are doing now, it's just going the route of, like, well, instead of cutting costs on the labor side, how about we cut cost in our packaging side? So there's a store that just opened in, I think it was Hillcrest, where now it's just you bring your own container, and everything is like scoop, everything is based on weight, so now you're minimizing the packaging, and it's all locally sourced, right? Because now you don't have to, like, freeze, like all these things that you can do to make that better. So I don't know, have you seen something else going out there in the food industry?
No, but I love that. I'm gonna have to get the name of that place. I love the fact that it's self-service and bring your own Tupperware.
I love the fact that Leo got to bring up this topic twice, because I think he brought it up in our
I love the concept. It sounds so outdated, because I think we brought up, like, the milkman kind of thing, right? Like, it's like people go like, well, I mean, you can use the milkman analogy, right? Of like, well, you have somebody that you just bring your own container, and why do you have to waste all these single-use plastics, right, for all these things? And
when I make my meals for my meal plan customers, it's always the dishes are stuff that they will, wash it and give it back to me, and it just
cool
comes back, and less container waste.
So how do you feel that people are being healthy with foods going forward? Like we mentioned, like fast food going the automation route. What about people trying to be healthy?
I think going vegan helps a lot. I think also what we were talking about of substituting certain things like cauliflower for rice. One of the things that I like to also offer to my customers is trying to be a little bit more healthy conscious. Of course, then I'll still put bacon on mac and cheese, because
just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Bacon mac and cheese is, oh my God.
But yeah, for sure.
Always a day over that.
Trying to think of different ways to be healthy. It's always on my mind.
No, it's awesome.
For an example, if I say, like, hey, Chris, I want meals that have X amount of calories, is that something that you offer to?
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, but it's definitely something that I can, work on and figure out.
I think you need to get on that.
It's also about making life easier for the customer, because I was talking to one of my clients, and they were saying that every week that they and their roommate have to think about what they're going to make and what to bring to work for their lunch and whatnot. And just having the meals ready for the week just takes such a load off of their minds. And just
that's why I like to meal prep on Sundays a lot of times. Yeah. Just football season is bad for me, but after football season, it's usually like, oh, okay, this is a lot easier. Just figure out what to do.
Going back to maybe the restaurant setting, where do you stand as far as tipping and like fair wage? I have to bring this up. You know that is a big thing for me, but this is my take. So hear me out. My take is I'm not okay with tipping, because I feel like they should do their job and really pay people a fair wage. So it's not, don't leave it up to luck to see how much they're going to give to them. Pay them what they deserve. So that's why. And this is just my crazy thought, and Eric doesn't like it. And
no, it's not the crazy thought. It's more you being very idealistic when we don't live in an ideal world.
For me, I just feel like I support it. Like the more I do it, I feel like no, like I mean, I do it. Don't get me wrong, I do tip, but it's just I feel
you don't like to.
Exactly. There's many threads of us joking about this. Many threads.
Listen. No, just listen to the show. I'm not gonna go in a rant.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, places should pay people a livable wage, but the thing is that minimum wage, it's below.
Oh,
it's not
crap.
actually.
No, it's not below. It's crap.
It's So tipping helps to kind of bridge that gap a little bit, and obviously, if the service is, standard or above, tip more. But I try to tip whenever I can, but there are times when the wallet is just not going to let me tip, so then I feel really bad. But I think with places so when I was living in Boston, I lived in Boston from 2010 to 2015, and the servers were paid, I think, like at that time it was like $2 and something cents per hour.
Federal.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay.
So obviously there you definitely got a tip,
Yeah.
So I feel really bad for them, but out here minimum wage is still crap anyways, so definitely try to tip when you can. Mm-hmm. And also on that, I really appreciate when restaurants will have a little bit of portion of the tips go to the cooks.
Yes. I brought that up in the episode because that used to not be the case. I don't know if you have been on this industry probably longer than me, but so have you seen that switch? Like, are they...
With some places, yeah. It's very... I wish more places would do that, but not everyone does.
That's sad to hear.
Yeah.
I was hoping... That was another thing that I brought up on that episode.
Yeah, I agreed with you.
Well, okay, I'm gonna go on this now, cause so hear this out, Chris.
This is why I was laughing.
So, what if? And I just want to put this on your mind. What if instead of focusing on minimum wage, we do a maximum wage? And that way you can distribute things more evenly for people.
So, how would you base that off of? Because I would be like, is there a max? Like, is there a limit?
I mean, I feel like there gets to a point where there is like a stupid, ridiculous amount of money that people shouldn't be making as an individual. So from there on, like any proceeds, if you have like maybe the better question is like you have a top wage, but you also have a fair wage, right? A livable wage for everybody. Because that way that you can alleviate that whole thing of like, well, the minimum wage is this. Well, no, like remember you have the top and then all your profits go to your employees, right? It's distributed.
Well, because my thing's more, I wouldn't even put it on the wages. I'd make sure that housing wasn't super crazy expensive. So at least people could always have shelter. Because that's where people usually spend most of their money. And what is a lot of...
At least here in our community. Like in well, I want to say California almost as a state.
But I mean, even when you think about a lot of other states, because there's so many poor people, a lot of their money still goes into their housing. So if we were actually make the floor for housing like not be so crazy high, I think people would then have disposable income and the economy to be better. But the rich don't want to give anyone else that kind of power.
It's just that balance is so... It's not... There's no balance right now. I think
that's why I think we keep fighting on trying to make minimum wage higher. I'm like, we should make being able to live lower.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't know the ideal way that we do that.
My partner, Steph, who is trying to change the way that real estate... So they're a real estate agent, and they're trying to change the way that we think about housing. Can definitely answer some questions on that front. So next interview.
Yeah.
We may have to convince some people.
Or not. I already know when that conversation happens again, the whole tipping and stuff's going to show up again because Leo loves
No. Maybe.
For the nth time.
If they want, maybe.
You've already seen my reaction. Leo likes to bring this up.
I'm kind of if you haven't watched our shows, I'm a bit frugal, so that's probably why too. But anyways,
I swear our friend groups where this comes up like every other month.
Oh, they know it. They know that it's just okay. I listen to the show. I mean, to that episode, and let me know what you think. Yeah.
But. A quick question: did you watch the movie The Menu?
Yes, I think so.
I love that movie. Just because it shows like when people start losing their joy from cooking because it becomes so massive. And I don't know, I really enjoyed that thought of the idea with that one. And then the ending, the thing that brought him cheer. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it was something like super simple. And I was just like, oh man, I wonder if that is how it is for Rules for Cook. Like they have like their little, maybe not something super clever, but something that's just like their home cooking that they like doing. Do you have something like this?
Yeah, definitely. So my mom used to make soy sauce roasted chicken. It's just super easy, super simple. Just take a whole chicken, marinate it in some soy sauce with a little bit of sugar, a little bit of rice cooking wine, and just roast it.
Getting too hungry.
Yeah, it's your fault.
I had like very little before this show.
That's why I just had a cup of noodles. I was just like, all right, I'm just going to do that because I know it's going to keep me full.
Actually, another recipe that brings me back to home cooking and growing up is savory sticky rice. So my grandma's recipe, it's so you take sweet rice and you...
Can I stop you? What is sweet rice?
Yeah, so it's more glutinous. So it has more starch, and so it's stickier. And so if you think of like in Thai food, they have like mango sticky rice. So obviously that's a dessert. But so with savory sticky rice, you just what my grandma would do is she would take Chinese sausage and some shiitake mushrooms and some carrots, onion, and stir fry it. Oh, steam the rice first, and then stir fry it with all the stuff and some soy sauce, and I like to add Lucky 8 to it.
You're just making me salivate.
And that one's great stuffed in turkey. So instead of doing a bread stuffing, you stuff the turkey with the sticky rice.
That I had never heard.
Yeah, and then you get all the yummy turkey flavor
just blew my mind
too.
Yeah. So you're free for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, we can definitely do a Friendsgiving together.
Let's do it. Okay, I do need to ask you this. So what's your measurement for success?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think the way I would answer that would be thinking about perfection versus excellence. Like something being perfect, it's subjective, right? So, sharing my food or my art or my skills in collaboration or event planning or what have you, and bringing some joy and fulfillment to people is success for me.
I was afraid he was going to be like, oh, money, honey.
That one's always the hard one for me because a lot of people say money, and I'm like, I don't think money would be my answer. I mean, for me, at least, I never think that money defines success because do you feel fulfilled just with money? And I see some people that make a shit ton of money, and they look miserable most of the time. And then you can see someone that makes minimum wage, but they're happy with their life. And I'm like, you could tell that person feels successful. So I don't feel like money is the only way you can measure it.
One of the things that made me happy was this little no parking sign that you had up on your website. So could you tell the audience a little bit more about this no parking sign?
Yeah, for sure. So one of my most loved pieces of art it says Love Zone, no hating anytime. And the story behind this piece is that in Boston, I was walking home from work one evening, and I found a street sign that had fallen over, took it home. Originally, it said tow zone, no parking anytime. And so I just altered it a little bit to make it a more loving message.
And you sell this art, right?
Yes, I sell it. It's online as well as whenever I'm tabling, and I also do art commissions. So I've taken a couple of painting classes. I mostly work in acrylic, but I can also do oils as well. And so another one of my favorite pieces is one called Blossoming Roots. And the original is actually a probably a 3-inch by 3-inch, just black pen drawing, and the finished product is a 2-foot by 2-foot piece of art. And I added color to it. I added the flowers coming off of the person's shoulder, and I added more of the roots. And so I did this piece back in 2008. And in 2013, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I dedicated the piece to her, as well as other people who go through having to deal with breast cancer.
And something that you told us, I think, before the episode too, is that you also have a Black Lives Matter art piece, right? And did you mention the proceeds go?
Yeah, so the proceeds of that piece go to Black Lives Matter, and it's something that I being someone from the LGBTQ plus community, as well as being a person of color, you know, me being Asian, me being Chinese, just the parallels of being a marginalized community, a marginalized person, the hardships that Black people have to go through are just horrendous. And so this piece is something that I hope can inspire folks to support people that are different from themselves. And so, yeah, definitely all the proceeds from that piece go to Black Lives Matter.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
And with that, we move to the last segment of this show.
All right, I'm ready.
Rapid fire.
I don't know if I'm ready. I usually mess these up, so. So, Chris, this is the last segment of the show where we ask you to choose an answer without any context, and you just choose the one that resonates more with you. Are you ready?
Ready.
Speed tennis or volleyball?
Volleyball.
Eleanor or Chidi?
Chidi.
Breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Dinner.
Future or past?
Future.
Chicken or egg?
Chicken.
Iced or hot?
Hot.
Traveling or food?
Food.
Sing off or dance off?
Dance off.
C-3PO, R2-D2, or BB-8?
C-3PO.
Canvas or paper?
Canvas.
Pork, chicken, or vegetable ramen?
Chicken.
Subway or Jersey Mike's?
Jersey Mike's.
Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich or Popeye's chicken sandwich?
Popeyes for sure. Chick-fil-A is the worst.
Yeah.
They are very homophobic.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, I mean, the food itself.
I've never had the food.
Good.
I like the chicken sandwich.
It's just their sauces.
I like the chicken sandwich. The spicy one I like.
And the most important question we ask on this show: the iiWii show or the iiWii show?
The iiWii show for sure.
Chris, thank you so much again for being here with us. Anything you would like to tell your viewers, your family, and your friends?
Thank you all for all the love and support. I really appreciate everyone, and I appreciate you both, and Jonathan and Cisco as well.
Oh, thanks.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. This was great.
Please make sure you follow Chris on social media.
Yeah, chrismokcreations.com for my website, and then on Instagram, it's at chrismokcreations. And then with Twitter, I'm not as active, but you'll find me at chrismokcreations.
Okay, well, there you go. You have some information. We're also going to put it below in the video. And make sure you like and subscribe to our channel to support us. Right, Eric?
Yeah, great job with the outro right there.
Oh, thank you.
We're usually off the cuff, and it's like, oh, it's Wild Wild West with us.
Yeah.
It is what it is. There you go.
All
right. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Thanks.
Thank you.